People are strange. Something strange.
Is that strange?
That is strange.
That is strange.
Wow, that is strange. This is strange.
And welcome to another episode of Strange Sauna. Today is a very special episode, Alien Addict. Dave, Lee, and Ollie, welcome to the show. Good to have you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Now,
Yeah,
I've been
thanks,
on, yes, I've been on Alien Addict plenty of times. You guys are freaking awesome. We talk about Trump and whether or not he's the Antichrist. You know, we go pretty deep when it goes into those conversations. But Lee and Ollie, you guys are from the UK. Dave, you're from the state of Tennessee, so you're doing just fine.
Yep.
But the UK is falling apart. Something is happening in the UK, and we're here to talk about all of it.
Do you know, I knew there was something going wrong when Keir Starmer was elected as Prime Minister, and the first thing I saw on social media, and Flex all know where I'm coming from here, the first thing I saw was Justin Trudeau congratulating Keir Starmer, saying that together we can push forward more progressive politics.
Yeah. Oh boy.
And at that point I thought, we're fucked. That's
not suspicious at all, right? When Trudeau or Trudeau or Trudum, whatever you want to call him, gives you the pat on the back, as he did when Biden got in, and I was like, oh, okay. Now we see.
So now, who is this woman, and what is the position, and why is that important?
Oh, Keir's a man.
I think
we're assuming things here, guys. Has anyone asked him or her?
I didn't. Yes. Well, I didn't even know. I didn't know there was such a thing as a man and a woman. I thought that was still, fluid type of transition here. But okay, so it's a dude.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm dying to make a joke here, but I don't want to get arrested.
Oh yeah.
Go to prison.
Oh God.
Oh,
wow.
you wouldn't do well in prison, but you would be popular with those tiny hands.
Well, they'll extradite you now since they're going to.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say we're all in danger. So
they can't find me.
What is this guy's name again? What's his name? Keir
Starmer. Yeah, he is the leader of the Labour Party in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
He was. Which I only realized the other day was like a Marxist when he was at school, like heavily he was really far left, and I didn't realize quite how far left he actually was until he came in, and it's that whole thing, like the Trudeau creeping dictator.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it, but it almost feels to me like some of the stuff that's being passed where there's been people arrested for sharing memes of things, which is essentially just political dissidence. I read today they're putting a load of money together to make misogyny like a terrorist offense.
Really?
Like, so misogyny will be treated as like an extremist point of view.
Oh my.
I like, it's just happened so quickly, and I can't help but think that I think Flex is right as far as the UK, Australia, and Canada being like the forefront of the push of this like ideology.
Yeah. Because we're weak.
But I think
we're weak up here. Honestly, we are.
Yeah, and I think the UK is catching up. Because they haven't been quite as aggressive. We weren't quite as aggressive with vaccines. We weren't as aggressive with the social media sort of policing.
Yeah.
And since he's got in, he's like, right, I need to get back on board with my comrades.
So now he was voted in July 5th, 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is very fast, like you were saying. There's a lot of... So what has he done as far as like liberal ideology programs? What has he brought in?
Well, the weird one, because at first I thought everything was going to be okay, because the first thing he did was they banned gender conversion for children. So I thought, right, this is a good move. I thought like this is going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then after there was a stabbing in the UK, which you probably heard of, where three children were killed at a Taylor Swift dance class.
So bizarre.
That set-
So bizarre.
Yeah, that set off a chain of rioting essentially across the UK.
Yep.
And that being the vehicle to bring in these sort of more totalitarian controls around social media. Obviously, Elon Musk has come out and said, like, what's going on in the UK? This is a bit weird.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wonder whether it's going to end up being like a ban on X in the UK. That's the way I see it.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, why not?
Well, so I've been looking into kind of the events that have occurred. I found like a Tommy Robinson interview where he just laid out a timeline of the progression of Muslims coming into the country, and essentially, like, I don't know what the percentage of the population in the UK is Muslim or immigrant or, not native born, but I think it's pretty high.
See, this is the thing that I think sometimes the media pushes. Even if you believe the like national statistics that come from the government, I believe it's 20% is like non-British. So it's like it's still a massively like the UK is still a massively sort of British-born and white population.
Okay.
I think there's certain population centers. Ollie would probably help me better with this, with which cities it is and things like that, because although I'm in the United Kingdom, I come from a small island. So I'm kind of a bit insulated from this stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the media builds it up more to be more than it is, and I kind of think that's by design. I think it's by design to make people fight with each other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well,
that's definitely what's going on.
Yeah,
because they're just making people fight with each other.
Well, it reminded me. Yeah, it reminds me of you guys are going through your George Floyd moment, but it's like the Muslim race rather than the black race. You know what I mean? So it's like you guys have the same kind of buildup going where there's riots in the streets, but it seems to be like this grassroots movement. But I mean, we all know that grassroots movements are infiltrated by intelligence agencies all the time. So it's like, how do you really know and trust what's real? But I mean, the angst and the system that they have set up there over in the UK, where it's kind of like this banana republic where you can get away with doing certain things if you're Muslim or if you believe in a certain religion. But if you are white and you believe in Christianity and you try to speak out against what they're doing, you'll get in trouble for it. That's like the big takeaway that I saw. Is that right or no?
That's happening here in Canada as well, in Toronto. Same thing. It's just a mirror image. It's a mirror image what's going on in the UK. We haven't started rioting yet. I don't know if we will, but we're at that same point, like you said, Greg, where it's just we're having our quieter version of a George Floyd situation, but much tamer because we're very tame here. Super tame.
Limp-wristed. Okay, we'll just put it.
We're a little limp. We're not hard. We're always a little limp, unfortunately. Okay. Yeah.
All right. But so, Ollie, what were you going to say? You like more of like the populated areas, I guess. That's what Lee was saying.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with what I see is I don't think it's really changed as much as the media is showing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because don't get me, I do see some of the like new faces, people that don't speak much English and things like that. But the whole racial hate thing that they're showing on television, the reality is that I don't see that happening. I go to a lot of the big cities, so people they just tend to get on,
right?
So I'm wondering if what's going on is with the whole media thing is that they are trying to create this. Whatever it is happening, it is to create a divide.
Mm-hmm.
Just like what went on in the States with Black Lives Matter. It created a divide and it created this thing that wasn't there. Because I said this to Lee the other day. It felt like for such a long time now that there was no racism, no homophobic stuff, and then all of a sudden it kind of like just went mental before COVID, and then all of a sudden the whole world is going backwards on itself.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking that the entire time I was listening to Tommy Robinson talk about the chain of events, and I'm like, this all seems like it was orchestrated. Like they're trying to favor one group intentionally, shoving it in the faces of the native-born people in the UK, and saying like, hey, you can't talk about this group because they're a minority, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it's making this kind of angst, and they're building it up. Meanwhile, you have the police force backing up these rules, right? There, a couple years ago, I saw a woman who was she was praying silently outside of an abortion clinic. She got arrested. And a couple days ago, those charges were dropped. But it took 2 years to drop the charges, right? But I mean, she was praying for the kids who were being killed at the abortion clinic, right? And then you have, what was it? Here, can I actually share my screen? I wanted to go through a couple of clips and some information with you guys, because this just blew my mind.
I think that's banned in the UK now. I think the idea of praying outside abortion clinics, I believe we've just made that a criminal offense.
That is so bizarre to me.
So if I'm wrong, please somebody at Real Alien Addict on X and explain to me I'm wrong, but I don't believe I am.
Okay. Well, I mean, so this was something else that just came out last week. This Sutton man 61 who chanted "Who the F is Allah" is jailed for 18 months. So that just blew my mind, that you can't even question, like, maybe he didn't even know. Like, maybe he was being honest and he didn't even know who Allah was. And he was just like, what is this? So he gets jailed.
There's an interesting thing with these people. And like the guy that's been jailed as well, this is worth bringing up, is like we don't really have, I'm trying to think of like a US equivalent of it. I suppose it'd be like Hicks, really. We don't really have like a Hick.
Oh, hillbilly? Okay,
well,
yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa, easy guy.
Yeah, I was going to say, Dave's getting offended over here.
But what we do have is like thuggy chavs. Like they are drunk all the time.
Okay.
Kind of just watch football, go out on a Friday and Saturday night, and end up getting drunk to the point where they punch each other to death. Like whoever finds each other last.
So you're saying this guy might be a plant?
I'm just saying the people that seem to be getting in trouble, and maybe it's because of the people they are why they're getting in trouble, but the people that are getting in trouble do seem to be the people that just in general, like the vast majority of people from the UK would want to distance themselves from. And it's they're the kind of people that make Brits look like dickheads when they go on holiday, because they're the ones that get in trouble. Yeah,
I get you.
You know when you see the football violence in the UK, in Europe and stuff like that. That's these people.
Yep, same thing here in the States. You know, when the team wins, like when the Philadelphia Eagles win the Super Bowl, they just destroy. Philly fans just destroy the city. I have no idea why. They actually have to grease the light posts so that way people can't climb them. Bizarre.
That's amazing.
Right?
Maybe we need to do that more.
Yeah, in Canada, we use maple syrup so they can climb it when the Toronto Maple Leafs ever win their next championship. So we want them to climb it, so we'll put some maple syrup on it, make it nice and sticky.
Well, so here was another. This is the director of public prosecutions of England and Wales. I don't know his name. Stephen Parkinson's. He was explaining how if you share social media posts about the arrests or about anything like the riots, they'll come after you. And so let me know if you have any trouble hearing this. You guys should be able to hear this.
The offence of incitement to racial hatred involves publishing or distributing material which is insulting or abusive, which is intended to or likely to start racial hatred. So if you retweet that, then you're republishing that, and then potentially you're committing that offence. And we do have dedicated police officers who are scouring social media. Their job is to look for this material and then follow up with identification, arrests, and so forth. So it's a really, really serious. People might think they're not doing anything harmful. They are, and the consequences will be visited upon them.
Nuts.
Isn't it crazy when you've got like such a mess of a country that we're living in right now in the UK, that you've got that officers have time to go scouring Facebook looking for people's read of people's tweets or whatever.
Yes,
seeing if people are retweeting things. You'd have thought they'd have bigger things to deal with.
Well, it's a whole lot safer.
Absolutely.
It's a whole lot safer to go through Facebook and arrest the people who you know are probably going to be compliant. If you look at what happened here in BML or BLM when all the riots and whatnot were going on, they didn't arrest anyone rioting. They didn't break out for violence. The people that got together or even were saying things online were like, hey, we should do something. Where's the cops? When we began to criticize local government, they came to their houses. The only thing is, I think they got a couple of them outside Ferguson, like they were going to arrest people for how dare you criticize me. And when the neighbors were like, nah, you're not going to take that guy, put him back. The cops were like, ooh, okay.
See,
and then they just disappeared the whole time.
That's what we have to do. We have to kind of like stand up for our neighbors and push back against this because it reminds me of what happened with COVID. You had over in Australia, the new mother, she shared something about, she just shared the event. I don't even know if she was planning on going, but there was like a pushback of like this, lockdowns and the mandates, like, let's go have like this rally. She just tweeted that out or forwarded on Facebook and they went and arrested her and took her phone and were like searching through all of her things.
It went right to her home. And we had here in Canada a snitch line. They wanted you to snitch on people if you had more than 4 or 5 people over at your house. And I had friends of mine that thought that was fine. I don't know if they're still my friends anymore. I have to think twice on that one.
Yeah, I would.
But that's why I moved out here where it's a little bit more progressive. But yeah, same thing. And we just had Trudeau literally say that if you do a terrorist attack, we won't take away your citizenship. I was trying to find the video earlier today. I saw it, and he was saying, oh, that just looks bad if we do that. Because it talked about how someone from Canada went over to Israel, Palestine, and they had knives and they were going to do something. I just saw it yesterday or the day before, and he was questioned on it. And he's like, yeah, if that's the case, then we don't revoke your citizenship because it just causes too much of eyes on it, and we don't want people to. A citizenship should be for everybody. Is basically what he was saying.
Dude, that's exactly what Tommy Robinson was saying. He was saying that if you have an Islamic character who went and stabbed these children or stabbed people, he had the ability to stab anybody he wanted, but he chose white individuals. So it's like, you're saying this wasn't a terrorism attack. This was mental illness, and that's what it's being thrown out as. But it's like,
is this the gentleman that stabbed the 3 girls?
Yeah. So that was something that was being said. It was a mental illness issue, not terrorism.
I don't think he was a gentleman.
No.
Oh,
just putting that out there.
Okay. All right. Well, hey.
And I've been seeing posts about people saying, because I think we all know by now that Taylor Swift is part of the occult. She's one of their top people. And I've been reading and seeing people saying that was a ritual. It was a sacrifice because it happened to be something with Taylor Swift.
Yep. And it happened to be 3 kids too. So
three kids. We know the numbers that they used to, and all that stuff. So again, I just saw it recently where I was like, interesting. Very, very concerning, obviously, but very interesting because at this point, it's just kind of like too many coincidences.
Well, the occult runs the world, so it's like
they do.
You have this triggering event that sparks. Look at this movement that we're in right now from what that guy did. So this is the last video that I want
to Taylor Swift. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. This is the last video I want to play, and then I'll bring it back to us. But it's like Met Police Commissioner Mark Rowley threatens to extradite and imprison American citizens over online posts. All right.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, so this blew my mind too. I was like, what is this all about?
We will throw the full force of the law at people. And whether you're in this country committing crimes on the streets or committing crimes from further afield online, we will come after you.
Talk to me about that, because we have seen some high-profile figures whipping up the hatred. You talked about it in there with the officers, in fact, about this being added to by online commentary. I mean, I'm even thinking of the likes of Elon Musk getting involved. What are you considering when it comes to dealing with people who are whipping up this kind of behaviour from behind a keyboard, maybe in a different country?
Being a keyboard warrior does not make you safe from the law. You can be guilty of offences of incitement, of stirring up racial hatred. There are numerous terrorist offences regarding the sort of publishing of material. All of those offences are in play if people are provoking hatred and violence on the streets, and we will come after those individuals just as we will physically confront on the streets the thugs and the obs who are causing the problems for communities.
What do you guys think about that?
I love that this nerd with the I don't know, questionable male authority with all that shiny bling he's got going on his shoulders is going to come after Americans. It's fantastic.
Yeah, good luck with
fantastic. That. Yeah, round 2. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw all the memes online, like people looking at like walls of guns saying Americans when the English threaten to come take you away or something. I don't know.
And my question is every one of these people in their pocket, do they believe this is the right thing, or are they just being told what to do because they're getting, I just don't get it. Like none of these people, when I say none, I'm talking people of authority, like the video we just watched, where it's just like, no, this doesn't make sense, but I got to do this to keep my job, or I've been paid or compromised. I'm just, at this point, is it to wake up people, or that they don't give a shit now because they're just going to go forward with all this? That's the question I would like it to be asked.
I think it's righteous indignation. I think they feel that they're being told about something that they really know nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
And they're being told by taking this position, they're in the right. And they just forward we go.
Right.
They practiced with this, didn't they? Because I mean, look at COVID I don't know what it was like in the States, but in the UK, the force, the police force knew some of the rules that they were doing were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They still stuck by them. So I honestly think they can get away with anything now. They can get away with anything. They can do what they want. It's tried and it's tested and it's working.
That's what I feel COVID was.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say the interesting thing when it comes to the UK and like COVID misinformation is there's a book that I think loads of people should go and read. It's one of the most important books that came out during COVID, called A State of Fear. The author is Laura Dobbsworth, and she chronicles essentially the moves the government made, along with like MI5 and stuff like that, to force people. And she has like documented interviews with these people that were making the decisions that were saying, well, we had to because we wanted people to stay inside. Admitting to lying about like death rates and lying about infection rates. Mm-hmm. But we have something, I think it's the 51st or 52nd Brigade. I might be getting the numbers wrong. That's our online, it's like an online army battalion, which deals in cultural manipulation and online tracking. We also have a thing called the Nudge Unit, which is so good at social manipulation, we export it. Like we export what we do for social manipulation to the States, to Canada. We have got it nailed. It's one of the reasons like we're kind of double fucked, because now this is happening in the UK and we happen to be really good at it as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and like I think MI5 was all caught up in the whole Trump-Russia Spygate stuff. So I think that it's been around forever. And, there's so many just different intelligence agencies around the world, like Mossad, CIA, like you name it. So who's involved, who really runs the world? take your pick. But when it comes down to like what Flex was saying, like, do these people really care? Or do you think like that guy who was just saying keyboard warriors aren't protected, like we'll come after you? Do you think he really is like believing this stuff and this is the right thing to do? Or do you think that he is like either being blackmailed or paid to do that?
Well, I watched two police officers trying to arrest this guy, and he was with two of his vlogger friends or whatever. And they were trying to arrest him for showing the British flag, for posting the British flag in a post. And you could see that the actual police officers knew what they were doing was wrong. You could see, when you see something in somebody's eyes, you could tell. So I know they know what they're doing is wrong, but it's their job.
Yeah.
So they've got families to feed. And what would be the consequences if one of the police officers went against the law?
They'd get fired, or they'd go to prison.
Lose their pension, get fired. I mean, that was all part of the COVID push with the vaccines.
Yeah,
which personally I thought after 6 months to a year they'd be like, nah, they're going to pay these. Canadian government just lifted the max vaccine mandate last month for nurses here.
Jeez.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there going, I was like, what? Like, very, very often does something get to me because I'm just kind of like, eh. But I was like, wow, like we're almost 2.5 years deep out of this, and they just lifted the mandates from it. And I just feel like back when this happened, I thought, first of all, I thought Trump would be back in office, and 3 months after Biden took office, I'm like, oh yeah, they'll figure this shit out. That's how naive I was.
You were trusting the plan.
Yes. And at the point where I realized, no, got to use some discernment here. And I can just see the pattern of what was going across all countries. But the fact, like I was saying, that I just don't know if this is, you'll have some people that will just be like, no. The white hats are behind this. This is the wake up people, and I'm listening going, I think you need to wake up and pinch yourself a little bit here, folks, because Trump gets in. It's not going to change a lot, folks. If you've come from a broken home, you still have a broken home. If you have drug problems, you're still going to be a drug addict. If you're late-term abortion, you're still going to do, like, a lot's not going to change. This division's still going to be there. And I just feel it's all kind of tied into whoever gets, like, who do you guys, we have Pollier, who's a conservative here, is our version of Trump. But do you guys have someone in the UK who is Trump-esque in a way?
Nigel Farage.
Yeah, I was going to say Nigel, probably. Right?
Okay.
He's going to prison.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, he's being threatened. But him and See, I'm not sure where I land on this. Especially, we'll go with Tommy Robinson first, because he's an odd character to me. He epitomizes actually the type of person I was mentioning before, as far as the quite thuggy football fan kind of guy.
Yeah.
He's been one of the problems, like, for me, because like, if you try and talk about illegal immigration in the UK, instantly the Tommy Robinson argument comes up, and it's kind of, he's, although not a conspiracy theorist, it's kind of like an Alex Jones situation.
I was going to say, he's like the scapegoat, right?
Yeah. So, but immediately, if you start talking about this stuff, that he's one of the reasons that people can label you as far right for having, for just saying we should have control of our own borders, which I don't think should be a right or left argument. It should just be fucking common sense.
Yeah.
But as far as Farage goes, I mean, he's never been an MP. He's just become an MP now. He was part of he was elected official in Europe, but this is the first time he's gotten into the British Parliament. But like, they're saying that he's one of the reasons for the violence that's happened in the UK. I find it amazing that we can try and say that anyone can spin, regardless of where you sit on Farage or Tommy Robinson, because he's another one that they've tried to pin on the like inciting the violence.
Mm-hmm.
How can you blame those two people and not the person that was doing the stabbing?
Right?
Well, it's very much like what happened in the
sense.
States. Same in the stint with Jan 6, right? They try to pin it on Trump. You know, up here we had our truckers protest, and our Supreme Court came out and said that it was against the Constitution. We don't have a Constitution, freedom of charter of freedom of rights, that they weren't allowed to arrest and trample people and stuff like that. So I feel like any of the people that you guys are talking about, if they are Trump-esque or right-leaning, or I mean, it's so far left now that you could be in the middle and you're still considered far right if it goes so far left. That I feel that they're just anyone who can wake up anybody, you know, and I think that was Trump's purpose, maybe, was to wake up people. You know, he did wake me up. They will, try to condemn on media, convict them, or kill them. Those are the three things, as Andrew Tate said at one point, being like, these are the three things they're going to do to you. Now, none of that's happened to Trudeau yet. Not that I wish it. Maybe I do, but none of that's.
Well, so going back to the Tommy Robinson thing, I think that they use them as the scapegoat to deter people from going down that road. So they build up this movement, they build up the pinnacle of punishment, and they serve as this guy as like a boxing bag. Same thing with Trump, where they intentionally keep the guy alive to kick his ass. You know what I mean? And be like, hey, look, if you keep on doing this, we're going to smack you here. We're going to take you to court. We're going to arrest you. We're going to give you some indictments. We're going to just slaughter you, whatever, right? So it's like, it does more good for them to keep these people alive because they serve as examples of what they can do to you.
Yeah, they can't kill them off because they need them for the sequel. Since we're all watching a movie, we need it for the sequel, right? So you can't kill off these guys.
I was just say, I'm curious how interested they are in the Trump sequel, though. They got pretty close. They got pretty close with that shot. Yeah. And I was actually at January 6th, so it was interesting to see the insanity that spun out immediately afterwards, because so many of us we didn't know what was going on until you left and got like signal to your cell phone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's things continue to spin more in, more out. And I believe that the part of the goal is to continue to obsess. I think the reason they fixate on these anomalies that come up and the reason they crucify them so hard in public is, one, yes, to make an example that you should never stand up and you should know your place and always go along with their anointed ones that they put in there. Mm-hmm. But also that they're in full panic mode because they know that position does genuinely hold a lot of power and they have nothing on them. They have nothing on them. You can look at these world leaders from everywhere else, and there's these obvious signs of bizarre things, whether it's Joe Biden getting kids to touch his legs and, his daughter's diary and all of that insanity. That you got, Castro's baby boy up there raised to be the world's savior of Canada, I guess.
Yeah.
You have the maybe a man, maybe not a man leader of the UK. We don't know. They haven't identified themselves, and I respect that kind of. Well, not really. You got the French leader and his, very much so older husband.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're not legit unless you have a dick. That's it. To be in politics, you're not legit unless you have a dick.
You got to marry a tranny. You
got to marry a tranny.
I don't know.
It's insane, man. It is insane. And it just gets stranger every day.
Yeah. So, and it's like they're making it so obvious right now. And that is one of the things that I struggle with too, is Trump a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Because he is waking a lot of people up, but what is he waking everybody up to? It's like he's pointing out this corrupt system that's obviously clearly corrupt. Everything that they do to Trump just makes it look, it just proves the point that yes, like, look, we knew all along this is what you are, like you're just basically showing your hands right now or showing your cards. So I just think that it's very suspicious to me that they keep doing this stuff to these figures, Tommy Robinson, Nigel Farage, Trump, everybody who's pushing back against this movement. They're keeping them alive. I think to, you know, like I said, like keep them as like this punching bag saying like, hey, we're going to deter this large crowd from speaking up and doing and pushing back. January 6th, I think, was a major operation to prevent that, because I mean, if we really wanted to overthrow the government, how easy would it be? I mean, that was like a couple weeks of planning to say, hey, look, everybody go here, support Trump, you know, show up if you can. But that's one thing that I noticed with the monitoring of the social media, the encryption. They're going after encrypted apps. When you saw Christopher Wray testifying about Thomas Crooks and the shooting and stuff, they were really hammering in on the fact that he was using an encryption app on his phone. So he was using something that would take his message and turn it into something that was illegible, so they couldn't read where he was going to be, what he was planning on doing, and all this stuff. So they want to go after that and probably ban that kind of behavior as well. So it's like they're taking away the people's ability to coordinate and plan mass gatherings without being infiltrated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just like, what hope do we have? And you see like Trump standing as this beacon of light, and everybody goes, I guess he's our only guy. Like, he must be it, because who else do we have? Right?
I think we have each other. I don't think there's any savior coming.
No.
I think if you want it, you have to be ungovernable, and you have to start local. You know, build a community, have friends, have a garden, have some kids. You know, reject what they try and shove down your throat. Be willing to stand your ground, and people will stand with you, especially if you build that community. Now, granted, if you're surrounded by the hedonism of some of these insane cities that are out of their mind and they're weaponizing their people against you, and the infrastructure is literally used against you to oppress you, you got to leave, right?
Yeah.
It's into the wilderness. You go 40 days and 40 nights till you can find somewhere to plant some roots with people like you. And then we're just going to have to see how it unfolds. I don't think Trump is anything other than the enemy of my enemy. And he's really driving them crazy. And I think he's a catalyst for change. If anything, he's a catalyst because he is spurring them to do insane things. The fact they're talking about arresting Nigel Farage in the UK, that's a crazy thing. It's another westernized nation. And you're like, we're going to get rid of the political party and we're going to lock them up. You said something we don't like, and if you comment on it, I'm going to put you for 18 months in prison.
Which is a form of election interference, right? That's election interference. On both ends. And I feel with all the stuff that, even with the Emergency Act put on the people up here in Canada and the J6, I think it was them being like, we're going to make something from this because we're going to deter you from wanting to stand up, you know. And as we all know up here, and I didn't go to the one in Ottawa, but when there was one in Toronto, I went to the protest, and there was vaxxed, unvaxxed people there. It was just this whole, hey, we need to get together and stand up for each other. And by doing what they did, same with the Jan 6 and what they're doing to Trump and the gentleman that you were speaking about earlier that they're trying to arrest, it's just to scare people. It's just a scare tactic, and you're still going to have, I don't know what population, you know, I'm thinking it's 25% of the population that's still maybe asleep to all this, maybe 80%'s awake, maybe not awake as we are to a lot of this, but
see, it's like such a hard measurement. Like, how do you truly know, you know? Very hard measurement. But as far as like the UK goes, what's next? Like, is there some big rally coming up? I saw like September 7th, there might be something coming up. I don't know if that's anything big.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure what that is either. But what I was going to say is I do think that one of the reasons behind this online policing is because people are pissed.
Yeah.
And everybody's starting to speak up.
Yeah.
So, and it's nothing to do with race.
No.
It's to do with the fact that we want to protect the country. I don't know if did you guys see the undercover guy that went on the boats? And he spent some time in these refugee camps.
I did not know.
So he went undercover, and most of these he got to know some of them, and they were all drinking, but they're all guys. 99% of them are all young guys.
So you're talking about the refugees where at? Like coming
from France to the UK. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
They're all young guys. All of them. Where are the wives?
Or the kids?
Where are the kids?
The other interesting question about that is it apparently it costs 10 grand a ticket to get on one of those small boats to come across the channel. So I think last Sunday was like the most ever that came through. It was like 700 people came across. So where are these refugees finding £10,000 a ticket to get over?
Someone's
That's what
paying,
I don't
yeah.
understand. Yeah, I don't get it. And I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm not saying not coming over, and I'm not even saying that there isn't like legitimate people that are like fleeing countries which we've basically turned into car parks over the last few years.
Yep.
But see, there's another side to this, which I often play with, because first of all, when you think if we look at this as just being like about totalitarian control, like clamping down social media, clamping down all these things, well, they had that during COVID, and they let us back out. They didn't have to, because I think they could have just kept, especially in the UK, they could have kept pumping that, like another variant. This variant's dangerous, and they could have kept, because I mean we were the same as Canada. We had. Not where I am, but in the UK, they had the barcodes for checking things. We had the NHS app, which had like how many vaccines you'd had and stuff like that.
Yep.
They could have kept those restrictions in, and I think 90% of people would have gone, as long as you allowed them to just go about their day. So like, oh yeah, well, I've just got to use the app now, haven't I? When I go to the cinema or when I go to the bar, it's just what we do now. So why did they get rid of that? Because that was your first steps towards this 1984 style world.
Yeah. No, I
think we might have the destination wrong.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, I think that they do that. It comes in waves. Like they put the pressure on to see how much we can withstand, and then they'll release to allow some of this Stockholm syndrome to occur. You know what I mean? Like they want to like not make it completely obvious. That would be my guess. There's studies. There's studies that shown between 18 and 24 months is where the breaking point is. So I think after 2 years, they were like, okay, we can pull back a little bit. Like Greg was saying, and it's just, now they're trying to do with this monkeypox thing and whatever. I mean, God knows what else is coming. I'm waiting for the aliens honestly to come and just take us, and I'll be first in line.
Say that.
I'll be first in line. I'll just grab whatever I need to grab and just go. But I agree with what Greg was saying. 18 to 24 months, the psychological review they were doing to see when people start to break. And I actually thought the opposite, what Lee was saying. I actually was thinking if they went longer, I think people would break and start to stand up maybe. Maybe not here in Canada, but probably parts in the States and around the world, that if it got to, 3, 4, 5 years, that would have been enough to say enough's enough. So with what Greg was saying, I think they pulled back. I think this was all a test.
Yep.
And I'm worried about the second test,
or
because we failed miserably. Humanity went fucking full retard.
Or it's just phase one of a complete operation. There,
Yes.
phase one was let's usher in the infrastructure, right? Because 5G is everywhere now. We have the infrastructure for the applications for a digital ID.
Mm-hmm.
My whole thing, Trump's been on the books, been saying like he wants the biometric ID implemented for all incoming immigrants, so if you're coming into
that's been said in the UK,
right? So and it was implemented. He did put that forward where every immigrant that was coming in was getting their irises scanned, their fingerprints. That was just everything was a biometric kind of head to toe scan. Biden kind of released that or laxed it, so we're not doing it anymore.
But I think that was to serve the purpose of let's flood all of these who knows who into the country. And then when we want, we can like activate whatever army at the certain point. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I think the biometric ID is what's coming next. And they're going to use that for voter ID. I think how do you solve voter ID is you have a face, you have a fingerprint. You can't fake that.
And most people will go for that because like now we have vote integrity. But there's always things that they use to manipulate it in the back end, and down the road, you know, we realize with 9/11, right? We're like, oh, we want to get these bastards, we want to get them back, and then they did the TSA, that whole everything, and we were okay with that because we were like, we can't ever have that again. So they take something that's good, and down the road flip it to it's bad, or it's bad from the beginning and make it look like it's good.
Absolutely, yeah. And
convince us that this is what you need, and unfortunately, they'll do it again.
Yeah, and with the biometric ID, it's essentially everybody has a phone already, so you are being tracked no matter what you do, where you go. But I mean, think about the video surveillance that they can do with just your face. So if you leave your phone at home, you're just as screwed because they can track you on every street corner wherever you go because of your digital imprint of your biometric ID. And honestly, I think that it's going to become the next form of payment. You know, you see steps closer and closer to cryptocurrency, the Bitcoin thing that Trump just did. JD Vance, you know, he was heavily funded by Peter Thiel, whatever. So Peter Thiel is this big biometrics ID stuff with Palantir. I don't know if you've looked into Palantir at all.
No.
But I mean, like the military industrial complex uses this. I mean, it is like, it has deep state written all over it. And so it's just like, JD Vance was heavily funded by this guy. He would have been nowhere. Actually, JD Vance was a never Trumper until Peter Thiel took JD Vance to Mar-a-Lago, and something happened in that exchange where things changed, and now he's VP. So it's just like, how does this happen? And what are the plans?
And he's
here?
much taller. He used to. Photos and videos, and back in the day was like 5'8", 5'7", and now he's the same height as Trump.
So now who's wearing the heels, huh?
That's what I mean, right? It's just like, at this point, it's kind of like, if it is a movie, it's gotten stale. Like, I've thrown that popcorn out 3 or 4 times. You know, fuck, man, I'm telling you, it's numbing.
So, I mean, to me, it's like, I don't think that Trump is a good guy. I'm just going to come out and say that. I think that, yes, he does wake a lot of people up to an obvious thing that needs to go away, but what he's going to replace it with is something that is going to be worse eventually. I think that it'll look like it's bright and shiny, but I think that it's a soft sell approach. And I heard David Icke talk about this, and you can love David Icke or hate him, but he was talking about Elon Musk and how Elon Musk is into the totalitarianism. He's into UBI. He's into technocracy. He's into carbon taxes. He's into all of these things, but he does it in a soft sale manner. Whereas you have the WEF, you have Klaus Schwab saying like, we're going to charge you for everything. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing where it's just like, whoa, they're really abrupt. They're really abrasive on how they do it. It's just like, here's how we're going to do it. Where Elon's saying, hey, let these guys talk. We're going to have X. Let's open up freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. And let's let everybody kind of, you know, feel comfortable again. But meanwhile, we're going to, you know, take your driver's license because I don't know if you guys use X a lot. I know like we communicate through X quite a bit. So
we use it.
Do you have a blue check mark?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what did you have to do to get that?
Got to give me your ID.
You give them your ID, which includes your address.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was this big kind of expose anomaly. I don't know if you ever follow him at all.
I've seen him.
Yeah, he's kind of like not doing as much now because he's like, you know, I don't know if it was like getting to his head or whatnot, but he's like, I just need a break from this. But he did this thing where he exposed your address and everything is being given to this Israeli corporation. And it's like, well, wait a second. So people in Israel will have my address. So if I say anything about Israel, then they could do something? I don't know. It's like a little bit conspiratorial. It's a little bit like, on edge. But I mean, everything is pretty much like, I don't know if I trust a lot of things that people in the power of Elon Musk, because he's the richest man in the world. A lot of his wealth transfer happened during COVID. People don't seem to realize this, but like he got rich while everybody got poor and lost their jobs and lost their businesses and shit. So I
think it's all the dangling of the carrot. Trump comes in, things will be good for a bit. They'll bring in stuff that, like we were talking about, and once he's not in, and he's been replaced, or the next administration comes in, they will take what looks good, like we were saying, and tweak it. So you have that 3, 4, 5 years, like you guys did in 2016 to 2020. Where people were like, yeah, we got more money, our borders were safe, and did all this. So I think it's same bird, different wing, or whatever that saying is, where it's just enough to dangle the carrot, get people to be comfortable, get people to invest in these technologies because it's going to be good for voter fraud and security. And then down the road, the plan would be to manipulate that. And it's not like they already have the plan of when they want to do it. It could be like 5 or 10 years from now, where they're like, oh, remember this digital ID we did for the immigrants and for the voting? Exactly.
But the biggest risk, though, is no one will push back, and everybody, so that's the thing, is like you're growing this big population of people who trust you. And once you trust somebody, you're not as willing to question them or criticize them, scrutinize them, like look at their decisions like with a skeptical eye.
Yeah. I mean, look at it now with people still trust their government because they've been told for as long as they've been alive through school and everything, trust. And this is why we're having a hard time waking up people's, because they trust this body that we have hired or have elected to be servants to us, which is not the case. We should be the private citizens and they should be transparent, but it's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. It's this trust that you're having now, and then down the road, it gets peeled away either from a false flag or a terrorist attack, or the next administration comes in and they just peel away what looked to be good and safe and secure, such as the digital ID.
It's just it's a replacement of a system. And, you know, like the whole Q stuff, like, I do think that stuff is real. I think the intention was completely different. I think it's more of a revelation of the method type of thing, because I do think it's like and I heard Sam Tripoli say this on, Tinfoil Hat, two mob bosses fighting against each other, where you have the old guard. It's obvious they're in power right now. They want this corruption. They want this totalitarian kind of like digital currency, all this stuff where they're going to track everything you do. Trump is coming in as the solution to that, where he said that he'll never have a central bank digital currency, but that doesn't mean that he won't have a cryptocurrency, right? So there's going to be something that's different there. So obviously you don't want the old guard. That's bad. And Trump is waking everybody up to that. So when you speak bad about Trump now, people go, well, you think that they're good people now? You think that the old guard is like someone to be trusted? Like, how can you think this? Like, you're probably, like, how can I trust you now? Where it's not that. It's more like, well, how do you know he's going to bring something better? I mean, when he says that he can stop the Ukraine-Russia conflict in 24 hours, it's like, that's pretty bold.
He never says how. He never says how, does he?
To be fair, he probably could, because he just make you stop funding it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
absolutely.
would be key. Yeah.
Right. Well, Germany just came out saying that they were going to completely stop funding with the Ukraine war. I don't know how much they were giving, but
I think there's an interesting thing that we're not quite seeing as well. All three of our respective countries, it's almost like we're seeing from the push of identity politics, like with the trans stuff as well, which I think was, now looking back on it, seemed to be the first steps towards this.
Yep.
It's almost like we're seeing a controlled demolition of the left wing, like a purposeful controlled demolition, because you're getting to the point where it's gonna become ridiculous to align with those parties unless you're a fanatic, essentially. I think because that's what we were saying about Farage there. If this is like an inside job, let's say, I can absolutely see him being set up to be our Trump, because like Keir Starmer, when Labour were voted in, had something like a 98% approval rating.
Wow.
When he was voted in. It's in the 20s now.
Oh boy.
And that's been
So,
in for 5
That's
minutes.
2 months he's been in.
Less than 2 months.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's
that's a record. Do they give awards out? Because that's a record.
We need one.
I'll give them one.
But I keep going back to this idea that like when you think of 1984, it wasn't just enough to comply with the party.
Right.
You had to love the party. You had to want the party.
Yeah.
So the idea that you destroy the left to make us celebrate the right, and then you end up with like a real hard right totalitarian.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
government.
I mean, you look at how did the Nazis come to power, and how did they get on board with these ideas that the Jews were the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
It took a lot of immigration, probably like straw manning people, saying like, oh, look, he's serving as the scapegoat. Like a lot of the same things that we're seeing today likely happened back then, and where you have the German people seeing the problems happen, they're going, yeah, these guys are the problem. Like, let's get them out of here, and you can kind of see
the UK, very true to the UK right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, same thing.
Can't be all just hating small hats.
Yeah. And it's, when it comes down to us versus them, it just keeps us occupied with focusing on the wrong people. It's the people kind of setting up who's paying for the boats, the 10 grand a ticket, that kind of thing. Let's go there and maybe blame that person or people. Start calling them out, investigating that route, and just start there. Follow the money, because usually where the money comes from, that's the root of wherever this, begins. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's reached its boiling point now, and something is going to tip. I think we've got a year, if that.
Ollie, I don't even think it's close to boiling. I don't think it's close. I think you're going to see homegrown terrorism in each country, the likes of which we've never seen before. It's gonna make the troubles with Northern Ireland seem like a polite squabble outside a pub.
I think that's why Trump has to win in the United States. We've talked about this before. I think one of the interesting things I've taken away, again, love him, hate him, whatever, we have to deal with the reality of what happens if he does or doesn't get in. If he doesn't get in, and it is the current path, we are on economic destruction.
Mm-hmm.
It's bad. If he does get in, one of the things I thought was interesting when he said that he was going to be on the ballot, the first state to try and move to take him off was Colorado. Nobody called that. Nobody saw that coming. Colorado? What? Like, you got Denver, but there's the rest of the population who doesn't feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone would have bet that it would have been New York or California or Washington or Oregon. Any of those states, everyone would have been like, yeah, I saw that coming. That's not what happened. It was Colorado. That tells me there is an unpredictable nature that is percolating around him, for better or worse, and it is volatile. Again, for better or worse. I see him get in, and in 2 years, you're going to have cities try and lead the states away in some kind of separation, soft civil war exfil that you'll see played out in cities and on the borders of cities. Like on the border of Seattle. Seattle's going to say, where Washington's going. Washington State's going to be like, no, we're not. You can, right? You can. But even then, you can't do that because we've already proved in American history we're not a union, right? Like southern states are still occupied. Like you don't have the choice to leave. And then it gets ugly because every city, and that's most all major U.S. blue cities are blue, you're going to have a Northern Ireland-esque play out there. And then at what point do they do? Right? So you have, say, Chicago. No, not even Chicago. Let's stick with Seattle, right? Seattle's in our head. Let's stick with Seattle. Seattle, Olympia, right? They blend together right there. Incredibly far left. They're out there. We don't want to be a part of this. We're taking the state. State says no. You have the Trump administration now trying to be like, well, we're not going to let you do this, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, we're leaving. And what would the great thing if they've locked up Farage, Europe's gone even crazier far left and somewhere on the tinge of war? It's like, well, let's send in, NATO troops just to help keep the peace, maybe UN peacekeepers, whatever, so you can work this out, America. How does that play out in that major city? It's the destabilization. I think once we start to destabilize, that is when the boot will come down on the UK. Because as it stands, and Lee had put it in another show we had done, America has a large shield on its back and it covers a lot of Europe. But as we continually go under trouble, that shield's getting smaller and smaller and it's getting heavier and heavier. And once we're occupied with ourselves, governments everywhere are going to change drastically.
Yeah, once we can't send our soldiers to other countries because we got to keep them here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then it's like, what's the world going to really do? I don't know. But it is one of those things where you remember Chaz / Chop.
Absolutely.
Yep. What was it? A 6x6 block radius where it was just completely controlled by Antifa.
With a warlord.
With a warlord.
Real warlord. Yeah.
So that could have been a preparatory action where it's like, okay, let's plan this out. Let's try this. Yeah, it's a test,
It's a test.
So if we were to
do you feel places like up here in Canada, we've always had Quebec, which was next to Ontario, where I used to live in Toronto, wanting to separate for years. You feel something like California will try to do it, New York will try to do it, like you'll have some of those states just say, fuck it, we're out. Texas, maybe.
You're already seeing that, though, Flex.
Yeah.
I mean, Greater Idaho, New California, New Oregon. It's usually like the eastern half of the state wants to leave,
Interesting.
Yeah. It's the coastal population centers that rule because they have the population.
Absolutely.
They drum in the homeless. They drum they're packed on top. When you I love California. When you get out into the rural areas of California, the smaller cities, smaller towns, where they have rodeos and they live a very Western-esque life, or they live in the mountains. Their views are nothing like those people who live in San Francisco or Sacramento or San Diego or Monterey or any of that. They're new. We don't. But they're under the boot of that population that's able to weight them down.
And they have the most electoral votes. I noticed, like California has a huge amount, same with New York. And I always wondered that, why. I think that's interesting that it's those Democratic holes they have the ones that have the most electoral votes, which I'm like, huh.
Well, they count. That's a head count for electoral votes.
Yes.
It's not a citizen head count.
Right.
It's a head count. How many people are here?
Right.
So California lets them run across. Nobody stops it. They keep it up because right now there's a mass exodus for most of those blue areas to other places. Some places it's affecting worse than others. Austin was always kind of a little weird. Now they're going purple into the blue.
That's what I'm saying,
Nashville and my city's starting to go they're starting to get in a weird purple, but there's been issues with people getting shot.
Oh boy.
And so suddenly they're like, oh, this isn't this new utopia. And everyone in Tennessee's like, everybody here has a gun. You should leave.
Yeah.
So then they go back to Austin, or they go up
well,
north.
that's the thing too, is you look at all these businesses leaving California for Texas. I mean, the Joe Rogan podcast, I mean, that's just a small operation, but when you look at Elon Musk, he's taking X now, what was it? SpaceX as well?
Yeah.
Right? Moving completely to Texas.
And he's taking some of the operations out of Brazil. I think Elon was saying that
I think he's taking all of it out.
All of it out of Brazil. Yeah.
So, well, Texas will become blue eventually if this rate keeps on progressing.
Tennessee just picked up a whole bunch of new businesses. Interestingly enough, firearms industries out of the Northeast, like Springfield, Smith & Wesson, Beretta, all staples of Massachusetts, right? And we're out. We're out now. We're going to go relocate to Tennessee, set up new manufacturing headquarters. And they've been here for a while.
Okay.
More
How
and
about
more
that?
just keeps coming. Yeah. You got Mercedes in Georgia, VW in Tennessee.
Right.
Yep.
So that's It's all interesting. It's very strange. Like, before I get out of here, I just want to say thank you guys for coming on, but I wanted to see, what do you think happens next in the UK, in the United States? It's all open. What do you guys think that happens next?
Well, I don't see a world where Donald Trump's going to be shaking hands with Keir Starmer anytime soon. But I don't know. I think we've got a hell of a lot of trouble to come before anything gets better.
Mm-hmm. Do you think we have like a monetary crash before Trump gets back in, or after?
I keep thinking about this crash that's going to happen, and it makes total sense to get everybody to have some sort of version of Neuralink in the future.
Mm-hmm.
To get something inside everybody.
The mark of the beast type of thing?
Yeah. It makes complete sense because Greg, you'd have to do it. I'd have to do it in order to have money. We'd all have to do it.
But that goes back to what Dave was saying, like, we need to band together, grow our own food, have our own education, have our own libraries, like create our own systems and just live off the grid wherever we can, I guess. But however, it's like the Matrix, you have to unplug and literally live in that shithole that, that Neo and Morpheus actually live in the real world. But then they slowly build it back up, and you have Scion, which is, kind of weird name, but so what do you think, Dave? Do you think the market collapse will happen at all? Do you think it'll happen before Trump?
I think it will start on a Friday in Japan, maybe China. I think the futures market in the U.S. will reflect that somewhat. They may even do a stop trading. I think that opening Monday, Europe is decimated because people will have already set sails to liquidate their assets to move back to the U.S. I think while the U.S. will go down a little bit, I could see us losing, 5,000, maybe 10,000 points off the Dow, right? I think everyone else will lose 70+%.
So why do you think
the rest
that?
of the money will flood here? Because we have strong central intelligence agencies that want to maintain our weapons manufacturing, and those things always go up. That will be the precursor to some kind of war to bail us out.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to have a defined enemy at that point, or we'll have to be in a civil war. But at the end of the day, one thing history's shown us, if you look at all the bounces in markets, the money floods here.
Because of the war manufacturing.
Because of the rules of finance. I mean, while we're a nation of laws, allegedly, and we're for that, what we are, subjects to the deities of finance and capitalism, which I'm pro-capitalist, don't get me wrong. But most of America definitely worships at the altar of finance, right? Whether your retirement's there, your investment's there, whatever, that's the thing that plays a heavy role in your life and your future. And it's a constant concern. It has the energy. That's what's here. And you can already see that, Chinese people with enough money and assets, what do? They go somewhere where they can have their child born in the U.S. They'll buy U.S. property. They start putting their physical holdings here. It's just what you see. And when I see things like that, it makes me wonder and lean towards it's a little strange. But we've talked about a lot of different possible conspiracy theories. One of the ones that I always had up is if everything is somehow connected, and it's some weird humanism play. Like they blew up the Georgia Guidestones. They wanted less people. They wanted us to live in balance.
Mm-hmm.
You got world leaders like Gates and all these people that are about it. What if this whole apparatus is to continue to put pressure so that certain segments of the population who won't bow and won't bend a knee are proving themselves to the quote unquote elite that they're worthwhile of their place in the future, or at least their genetic line?
Yeah, I've thought about that too. Like those who didn't get the jab, those who withstood like the pressures and they didn't bow down to the whole woke agenda and all this stuff. Yeah, I wonder if they are keeping a close eye on those, me included. But it is one of those things where maybe those who won't take the mark of the beast will end up just dying off, and then you'll have a depopulation right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very possible.
So I don't know. Lee, what do you think?
Like I said before to Ollie, I think there's going to be more more incidents in the UK. I think we're going to see this turn into genuine terrorist cells that's there unless, and what it kind of destroyed my own point. I don't think maybe the violence that went on, I don't think it took a hold as much as like the establishment wanted it to. I remember there was one particular day where Starmer had like an emergency meeting. We call them Cobra meetings over here. They're like our emergency. Like if there's going to be military action or anything like that, they have a Cobra meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So they had an emergency meeting, which was to discuss the guaranteed far right violence that they were going to see the day after. Whoa. There wasn't a single riot all over the UK after this. And then they tried to cover that up by saying, oh, no, it was really good intelligence and really good policing. That's why there was no rioting. I kind of think that maybe there's enough people in the UK that understand we're being set up for something,
mm-hmm.
and that aren't going out and doing what they're supposed to be doing. As far as like on a broader sense, I think it feels like we're being set up for a cyber attack. You know, there's been these little tests all over where these things have gone down. This has been hacked. I mean, you guys, all your social security stuff was leaked online, wasn't it, the other day? That's, if there's going to be like a false flag, that's what I see it being. Because the idea that you could just pull the plug on everything, if you want control, pull the plug on it and bring the internet back up after that in your own image.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, have all your, pull it down, put in all the access points that you need to control the grid from, moving there forward, and make it work with your systems. I think that's, hand in hand, that's what they're going to do. They're going to reconnect everything so that it works with this biometric ID application, whatever waveform. I think Starlink is one world internet, and people are falling for it. They're being like, hey, Elon Musk is our savior. Like, at least we'll have Starlink. We'll have internet. We know when the bad guys pull the plug on the internet, they'll cut the cables in the deep sea waters. And I'm like, you guys realize that if Elon Musk's satellites are the only available internet, that is one world internet, right?
That's monopoly. That's it. You're done.
Yeah.
And I mean, who runs Starlink? Really? Like the Department of Defense. I mean, let's be real.
Probably DARPA. CIA.
Something like this, yeah. NASA. Yeah. I mean, NASA owns a boatload of SpaceX, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Flex, what do you think? What do you think happens?
I want to leave this on a happy note, but I have said to my American friends that I hang out with, I don't think there's going to be an election. I think something's going to happen. I asked them 3 questions. Do they cheat? Does he get in, or does the election not happen? And no one ever said Trump's getting in. They're all saying there's going to be a cheat so bad that maybe it exposes the 2020. For my American compadres, I feel for you guys because they haven't fixed the 2020. And this can't go forward until that is fixed. And I don't know. Our election here in Canada is not till next October. So I'm just going to get myself some poutine, and a little bit of female bacon, just hang, do my thing, watch from a distance. I don't travel to the States. My friend does quite a bit. And I don't think they actually said they're not going to go down to Texas in November.
Yeah.
Because of all that. So optimistic me says there won't be an election. Mm-hmm. Something big will happen that will hopefully, if you still believe in the military, but something has to happen where the 2020 election has to be looked at. And that's maybe where now you get 8 years of Trump. He wins this one. He gets his 4 from last time. I don't think he's in control now as much as people say he is. I don't know. But, that's it. I really don't know. And up in here in Canada, we just watch from a distance, guys. We're just watching, we're falling apart slowly. And I don't think there'll be civil unrest here ever. I think we'll just sort of
obey the whole time.
Well, that's it. That's it. For what it is.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you with the election. I think the cyber attack will happen during the election, and that will call into question the entire election results. Everybody would say, well, we can't trust the results because somebody hacked into the election. We have databases showing these results over here. We don't even know, we have reports, our federal agencies have shown that they went in and they switched a bunch of votes. So we don't know which ones are real and which ones are not. So we have
There's probably a lot of moderate Democrats that may not like Trump, but are like, I don't want another 4 years of what we just had. If they find that Kamala got in, because it's really, to me, it's comical with her and this other, whoever her VP is. And a lot of it's AI. You can tell they're just, it's almost like they want to make it so obvious that if they do cheat, those that came over, because Trump's numbers keep going up and up, if he's been shot, put in jail, he's been whatever, that I think it will be so obvious that the ones that didn't think there was cheating in 2020, which would be them versus, the right or the MAGA people, will go, no, this doesn't make sense. So I think it has to be so big. I think they needed to get his numbers so high that those that did vote for Trump on the other side will be like, nah, this doesn't make sense. And then shit will hit the fan, and it depends on what they have contingency plan in place to protect people.
Yeah, all options, man. I mean, honestly, no one really knows, but all we can do is really prepare. And like Dave was saying, like have friends, have your neighbors, have ammo and weapons. And food and water, that's take care of yourself. And toilet paper, always be prepared to wipe your ass. That's what I like to say. So
that's it.
Gentlemen, thank you guys so much. First time being on the show. Thanks so much for reaching out and wanting to come on to the show. I've been on, like I said, Alien Addict multiple times. Love your guys' content. Love you guys. You guys are brilliant to talk to. So where can people find you?
We are on YouTube. We stream live every Sunday on YouTube. We've just recently gone daily with our podcast. So
awesome.
On all podcast apps, you can find Alien Addict, and we have an hour show that drops every evening.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, yeah, you guys stay safe out there in the UK. Dave, stay safe in Tennessee. I know you will. And
good.
Flex, as always, just keep that poutine warm, my friend.
We're safe here, man. It's the most safest prison is what we call Canada.
So sad.
So sad.
All right, guys.
I shouldn't be smiling.
Well, thanks again for coming on, and we'll see you all later.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.